I still love that every episode.
Right on, man.
Welcome to Hobby Think Tank. We did not decide who's doing the opening, so I'm just going to talk. John Keating joining me. I'm Danny Black. What's going on, buddy?
Howdy. How are you?
Good. I love your shirt, vintage 1980 and before.
True
Yep,
story, right?
it's legally proven. So, um, we wanted to talk today, and we've played around with the name of the episode. I don't know what it'll end up being when by the time you see this, but the general overriding topic is who's really behind the hobby, and don't be a sheep and just follow people blindly. So I think you and I both are kind of independent thinkers, should we say, and have some feelings on what's good, what's worth keeping your eyes open on, and not following blindly. And we both kind of collect whatever we want, and I think we want more people just to enjoy collecting what they want, and with the card porn news and BBCE and all these things that go on in the hobby, just being a little bit more aware.
For sure, man. Um, we've all talked about it, but we've gotten. I feel like most of the hobby's gotten away from the spirit of collecting cards or collecting items, and just trying to make a buck, or hold on to a of you know pile of future potential earnings from sales. So, and that's not the hobby. That's something else, and it's frustrating, and it does affect other people. Always, uh, I've always disliked the term "hobby how you want" because essentially it says do whatever you want. It's like drive like you want, meaning you can bump in everybody's cars on the way down the street if you want to, but that we shouldn't hobby how we want. We should be doing it in a reasonable manner. If you want to invest, great, invest, but it's not. You know, it's kind of fool's gold if you ask me.
Well, so is the issue how people collect, or is the issue why they collect, how they collect? And I think you and I both feel that influencers, certain companies put pressure on people to buy certain products, collect certain products. Certain products get. I mean, I don't want to give names because I'm going to upset somebody, but the Monopoly product had a spike. V cards had a spike, but I think a lot of that is people were chasing the crowd, um,
Right.
and then you saw, we'll call it an adjustment. And I think you and I both kind of feel that those are not how we collect.
Yeah, I feel like the hobby. There's people in the pace car, and there's a whole herd of people following that pace car, and that's not the way it should be. You and I have spoken about some things. The genesis of the hobby has always been marketing, products and stuff like that, whether it's tobacco, gum, whatever else, root beer, cereal, all that stuff. We get that, but it's right now we're being told more so what to collect, and the fact that most baseball cards are just wrapping for other baseball cards is it's kind of sad. Takes away from again, it takes away. I delineate the hobby versus the industry, and there's a lot of industrialists out there, and the hobbyists don't seem to be flourishing as much. Or maybe we're not. We keep saying we want to grow the hobby, but it seems like we're growing more industrialists than we are hobbyists. So, what is driving that? And it's not just one company. Fanatics gets a lot of flack, even prior to anything really happening. Everybody's all over Fanatics about stuff. I'm a I grew up in an era where there was domination by tops, and I loved it. If there's domination by Fanatics, it doesn't bother me at all. But a lot of different forces are driving people to decision making that isn't necessarily healthy. I think for any kind of endeavor that's supposed to be a leisure activity, which is collecting.
You just made me think of something that we did not talk about. Do you think breakers breaking products that are not uh, they're not great products? They're shelf fillers,
Right.
and are there pressure from breakers that they're pumping up a product because they have, and even stores, they have to buy a certain amount of the shelf filler to get to the better product. So
Yeah, I actually had that conversation with my LCS owner last week. I was like, "Oh, this is about having to buy this," and I said, "Well, that's you have to do that. That's like that." And there's a tit for tat in many agreements like that outside of cards. Buy the you know buy my cheese danishes, and then I'll let you have the cookies too, that kind of crap. So, everybody does that. Hostess, Entenmann's, all that stuff. You can't just buy the cookies. You gotta sell the cheese danishes too. So
hobby think
that's
tank,
done all
real
over the
anti
place.
bakery.
Yeah, I haven't had breakfast yet. No, but yeah, that's part of it. I think we went through the junk wax era, which is we're still feeling that effect, but we're in the junk odds era now, where the only thing that matters is the odds of finding that needle in a haystack, that the case hit, the box hit, the pack hit, whatever, man. It's people are chasing that stuff like crack, and then we're talking about, for the most part, players that will have no long term impact on the sport and the hobby. Mickey Mantle is still, people still talk about Mickey Mantle wasn't the greatest baseball player. Why are his cards so valuable? He had an impact on millions of kids, and that's why. And he was a good player. He was a great player, but you know, that's why people still revere Mickey Mantle or Willie Mays or Hank Aaron, because of the impact they had, not on what their card was worth for a brief moment in time in spring 2023.
The amount of cards produced, like you said, was just tops. You had one set, so you didn't have pressure to buy the shelf fillers.
Right.
Um, when we talk about it, and the point of this episode is to don't be a sheep, and who's really behind the hobby. Should people stay away just in general from buying shelf fillers in retail? I mean, is that just pure commons, and they're going to be commons forever?
No, I buy stuff like that all the time. I'm not saying I buy a box of everything, but I buy what I call the dead guys, the Jackie Robinsons and the Ted Williams and the Garrigs. They pop up in all these sets, and I don't mind buying those.
Okay.
But I'm collecting, the greatest players of all time, and obviously modern cards, but it's still fun to see those pictures, and a 2022 platinum anniversary Satchel Paige refractor. I just got one of those this week, right? Great looking card, great player, historical, all that fun stuff. So there's still room for all that. I'm not saying that we should. I do think we probably have too many products, but we have too many products because most of the product is being discarded for the supposed hits. And again, it's just gift wrapping or just packing. They're basically, the cards are packing peanuts for the other cards.
Yeah.
9 cards in there that are going to get thrown away for the one card of a marginal player just because it's got a red border or a reverse photo or whatever. We're stepping all over ourselves. There's another term I'd like to use, but it's probably a PG show. But you know we're being told to buy these products because we're going to find an autograph, or have we gotten past the relic part of the hobby now? It seems like we may have, right? Will we be getting past the auto part soon?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. We're being pushed to buy these products for the chase cards. So
Right.
if you buy a box and there's a couple hundred cards in there, at best you're looking for one card.
Right.
Um,
Packing peanuts.
to me, I'd rather go buy the one card.
Right.
I don't want Tops or Panini or anybody to tell me I have to buy a hobby box or first off the line or one of these
Right.
crazy price products to get that one card. Like you said, you're chasing very specific players. So for me, that's one where I feel the card companies are putting pressure and having people buy stuff that they don't need.
Yeah, but it's a tried and true formula. They wouldn't be doing it if we have
Well, that's true.
fallen for it over and over and over again, right? Like, think about the first true chase cars were these autos, I guess, right? Put in by Upper Deck early
Yeah.
on, and those cards still hold their value, or their whatever value, meaning not monetary, but value in the hobby, meaning they're still sought after, right? Uh, now Now look at us. Then the '90s really hit full steam, and there were so many crappy cards, insert cards in the '90s, and there's so many crappy insert cards in the 2000s. There's so many crappy insert cards now, and their only reason we care is because they're inserts. And again, junk odds is what we're after, and that's no way to, you know, it's like being a crack addict. You got to get your hit or your fix, and it's redunculous, as some would say. And it's not
Um,
just the card companies, right?
so who else is there? Are we getting pressure from grading companies? I mean, is that all
Boy, you're reading
manufactured
my mind, man.
pressure? Yeah.
You're reading my mind, because I am not
By
a,
the way,
and I'll call.
that's a scary thing.
I know, right? It's yeah. I like to say I'm an open book, but man, that's I have PSA cards, I have SGC cards, I have Beckett cards, I have whatever, CDC, CSG, CBC, CNNBC, whatever. I have their cards as well. But the PSA is driving a lot of that end of things, not just, and the set registry really gets people excited, but it really it feeds, it's a great example of it. Maybe they'll study that in uh, psych 101 classes for centuries from now, about how they fed into people's competitive nature, and it's almost like fantasy football, but they've created this monster, or this machine that continually um, sucks people in. And I'm not a joiner, as you know, and I don't participate in it, but man, they really have. It's been quite a marketing ploy, and they don't care. You got to join their club, you got to do this, you got to do. Whereas these other companies, a lot of the other ones don't have the set registry, and maybe it seems like a fairly simple thing to implement. Uh, and I don't know whether it is a true resistance. Maybe they are, like, resisting the urge to do that, or maybe they don't know how. But either way, it's you
Well,
know,
I will say,
PSA is feeding on people's competitive nature, and great for them. But it's that's really a hard way to collect the pop reports, all that crap. I don't, who cares? Just buy a card you like. Uh,
that, no, well, I mean, I agree with you, and I feel like there's grading pressure. I feel like everybody
uh,
always talks about, you buy a raw card. If I show it to 10 people, 9 of them are going to say, "Oh, that's a 9, that's a 10."
right, right,
That's their reaction. The reaction is almost like a self grade, and I feel like
right.
that is even in vintage. I mean, people do it all the time. That's a beautiful 3. Well, it's a beautiful card. The 3 is an arbitrary number.
You're a beautiful three too. I think it'd be remiss if I didn't point out how beautiful of the three you are. But
I'm a solid 3.5, by the way.
you're a, Bu-
I'm
you're a
miscut.
Baltimore three,
I'm,
Baltimore
I'm,
three, baby.
I'm a Baltimore 6.
Okay.
I'm a New York 3.
So SGC just, they lowered the prices, and my first reaction is yes, and my second reaction is I've got hundreds of thousands of cards that aren't graded. I don't want to get any. I don't have any urge to get anything graded. It's not like I had an outbox that was just waiting for SGC to, or somebody to give me a sweet deal. I
Well,
you know I didn't run to my cards and say, you, let's go. We're going to Boca. It just, like, I think that's great that prices are lowered, but it doesn't necessarily mean, okay, now my threshold was $17.50. It falls under 17.50. Now I got to get everything graded.
right.
Who cares, right? Like you said, cards are cards, whether they're graded or not.
So
Or maybe I said that.
you're a man of the world and business and understand how things work. When a company like SGC comes out with $15 grading, they are trying to obviously get more business, but from a corporate level and from a very high level, they have to look at what it's going to do in the marketplace, secondary value. I mean, they know where they are compared to PSA. Do you think that the $15 is trying to raise the secondary market? I mean, are there other factors and reasons that they do it other than just getting more cards? I mean, is it, you say,
That's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't. You specifically mentioned SGC because of that. I feel like maybe these companies have different. Everybody wants more business, but I think maybe these companies have different motivating factors. I don't think that SGC is saying if we do 15, then that leads to this down the road. I think that they understand what their margins are and the potential volume that gets increased if they lower their prices, and that I feel like maybe I'm being a little naive, but I feel like they're simply caring about how much margin they're going to make per graded card, and $15 they can still handle that if they have increased volume. The cynical me says PSA is more into the manipulation market of things. I just full disclosure, I think SGC does things perfectly. I think their customer service is great. I think everything, the whole thing's great. You pay for a service just like Amazon. I buy something from Amazon, it gets delivered to me a couple days later. PSA, you send something off without paying for it, and it goes through some pixie dust machine, and it comes out either a 9 or a 4, and then goes into whatever, right? But I appreciate the way SGC does stuff. That's what
yeah.
I'm getting at. But I feel like PSA may have more of and that part. I guess maybe that's part of being the market leader is there's more of a potential for manipulation there, in my opinion, because they have such a big lead, and that's no different than I look at the way things were 20 years ago in the computer market, where PC and Microsoft were up here and Apple was down here.
Yep.
Now look where everything is, right? Like slow and steady, and Apple is, it was the hipsters thing back then. I think that's the way SGC now is. I can't imagine a future where SGC doesn't have a much larger market share just because of the way they do things. And I feel that that's from not necessarily manipulating or trying to manipulate the hobby they're just providing a service. PSA, on the other hand, I don't know what's going on over there because it's weird, it's mysterious, and all that fun stuff. So I
So
talk
if
too much.
no, if you were to educate a new grader, if somebody's never graded before, okay, you talked about PSA manipulation. Are you talking about secondary market prices? Are you talking about that when they run a special that they can flood the market, with the
Well, when
new
you
stuff?
hear, yeah, when you hear, and it's not just, I'm not saying it's set in stone, but when you hear stuff like, "Oh, you just can't get tens anymore," like, what does that tell you? Did they stop? Like, did people
I,
just suddenly stop? The
to be
cards
fair,
stop
I
making
always
tens?
wonder about that.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know enough about that end of the game for any graders to know. Yeah, I'm not a grader. I suck at grading, all that fun stuff. But when you hear, oh, PSA is not giving out tens anymore, like, well, and that could be anybody, not just PSA, but like, you tell me that's not manipulation of the market, right?
That's true.
It's and I don't know if it's a perception. There's people that are in the game a lot deeper than I am as far as grading that say that stuff. And there was a recent instance where a very well-known collector and seller was interested in crossing his cards over, his Jordan cards, 30 of them, and
Yep.
I think that was probably one of the low-key best hobby moments of the year. That there wasn't any whatever pristine. What were they looking for? Pristine Beckett things,
Yeah.
tens or 11s. I think that's one of the best hobby things that none of those cards did grade an 11, right? Or whatever it is, 10 point, whatever, 9.5. I don't know the difference between 9.5 and 10 anymore. So, I mean, that's one of the low key best things that did happen is because everybody, I think, was ready to jump on it, right? Like, up, they're going to give them a 10 or a different label. Didn't happen. I thought that was great, right? So,
I do think there's differences in the companies in how they grade. And I know that's an that's an obvious statement, but I don't know if you ever cross over. I've crossed over or tried to cross over several times, and yeah, I feel like I got manipulated. Like, why did I want to do that?
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Why? What? See, what are your motivating? What's your motivation to do that though? Is it to get a higher grade so you can sell it for a better price, or
no, this was
it's a
PC. I mean,
gamble, right?
well, I had a minimum grade request, but it was for the registry. I mean, I tried to
Right.
get it, but I wouldn't take. I made a decision. I wouldn't take a lower grade just to get it in a PSA slab.
Right. But there's
Um,
no science to that, man. You can go on Facebook, and Facebook, all these groups will tell you that Beckett grade is 2 grades higher than an SGC. But then the next group will tell you that an SGC grade is 2 grades lower than a PSA. Like there's no rhyme or reason to any of it. It's just obviously we know it's subjective and all that stuff. But when it is subjective, I think that leads a lot of a long leash for some companies to essentially do whatever they want. And I don't think it's as simple as somebody standing over somebody saying, "Yep, give that a 9, give that a." But how can you have, when it is subjective and you have hundreds of graders or dozens of graders, uh, how can you spit out a consistent product? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And
honestly,
but the whole hobby turns on all this, right? Like this is
froze.
the axis of the hobby, which is unfortunate. Is we know it, we all know it, but you know we're we're hanging in the balance on some dude bro grading a card in Santa Ana, California, who really the only thing that person cares about is the height of the waves at Huntington Beach and can they get out of work by 3 o'clock. That's essentially what those people, that's what they care about. Yet the balance of the hobby and the health of the hobby depends on what that person's opinion is.
It's exactly what I wanted to bring full circle. Is we started with the idea of not letting yourself be manipulated, um, understanding the motivations from the companies, and not being a sheep. Um, so I guess are we saying that grading is one of the biggest pressures in the hobby? Is that sort of
Well, it's
one of
interesting
our
because it's one of the more established ones, right? Like
yeah
the card companies are telling you how to collect by whatever odds they're putting on the box and all that junk. They're telling you how to collect for the most part. And I'm saying a majority of the collectors or theoretical collectors in this hobby are following along with the card companies say. Then after that, it's the grading companies are telling you how to collect and what to collect and all that stuff. So below that, I think, which is what you're going to get to, is a whole level of people that have absolutely zero authority in the hobby that are also trying to pull strings on how and what you collect. And I've said before, I don't have any great ideas, but I know what bad ideas look like. And, uh, you know, I'll call it out right now, but fractional collecting was a bad idea from the get go. Like it didn't make any sense because they were marketing to collectors on nostalgia, and then on the other hand, marketing depends on whose soft spot they could hit. They were saying they're saying it's a great investment. Now, who the heck would you know put all their money into cards like that? Their retirement account into cards like that, not knowing what's going to happen. But that drives it, right? There's a certain gentleman in Georgia who is a wonderful person to talk to, but has absolutely zero and has tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of followers and pro apps and all that stuff, but has zero ability above yours or mine or any other collector to know who the next greatest player is going to be, the next greatest card, and all that stuff. Yet people are following that 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 gentleman and his gang right off the edge. Maybe we've had or maybe our stomachs full with people like that, but still, it's that just goes to show you where people's heads are like. And then there's people that will defend that guy on the internet for whatever reasons. It's like common sense seems to have gone completely out the window sometimes.
Well, that common sense went out the window 20 years ago, at least. But
Great point.
card porn is a perfect example to me of how many people in the hobby followed that account. And there's nothing wrong with following for entertainment. I follow accounts for entertainment, that I don't take seriously and would never listen to, but they might put up a funny meme.
Right.
People follow some of these accounts and take what they say as gospel because the account has a lot of followers. And I think
Right.
one of the biggest warnings is, if you're following accounts just for followers or just because that somebody has a popularity, it doesn't mean they know anymore. They're giving you better advice.
Right.
And I just
They
think
just
that's
have a better mouthpiece, right? They're better able to, it's like it's almost like, yeah, I won't say what I was going to say, but yeah, and it's not limited to. We know prior to and during the pandemic there were people selling farm animal NFTs and crap like that.
I
You
forgot.
just yeah, it really is I don't want to say it's a Ponzi scheme, but it's
Oh,
just like
those were the golden
it's
years of the
like
hobby.
let's see how far we can. It's almost a joke, right? Let's see how far we can go. Like, do you think the people who are going to buy these you know these
It is.
freaking vaping apes in the ether? Like how is that? But we got sucked in, and we meaning you guys got sucked in, and
Well,
like,
you,
it doesn't
you,
make, like
you,
I
you,
said, not
you
a good
guys doesn't
idea, but I know
include
what a
me
bad idea
here.
is. Yeah,
I
yeah. You
I have
use
no
guys.
farm animals. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, again, like I said, it's like that a bad idea, and we keep revisiting that as a hobby, it seems, or as an industry, or whatever. Maybe there's a third term we can come up with for the interlopers that are coming in and just monkeying around. But you know what it is? Essentially, it's you ever see the room boiler room? It's just one. It seems like we're constantly in a cycle of pump and dump, and you know, every product is the release day. We got to sell it. We got to get it on eBay within the day it comes out because there's a 3 or 4 day shelf life, right? And that's to me that's we're being manipulated, and there is a very real, like, again, it's pump and dump. Somebody, there's winners, but
Here's
there's
my
a lot of
com C.
losers too.
Here's my com C delivery going out today, just so I can
Yeah,
have
well,
it
you
up.
can't pump and dump on ComC, right? Because
I can.
ComC has a little bit of a there's a process, and there's a time, and it takes a while. So I applaud ComC for essentially they're just by the way their structure is, you can't really pump and dump. You can on eBay, right?
Yep. Well, I like keeping the cards there, and then I throw them there. Then when the guy
Yeah.
gets called up, change
Yeah,
the price.
yeah, that's true. That's a great point, but it's not like an immediate, on
Yeah.
release day. You can't, your cards aren't going to
No,
be
no.
on ComC, or and I know we have vaulting and all that. ComC, we all bust everybody's chops about vaults. Vaults are great for a specific or a couple specific needs, like overseas people and tax stuff. If you do want to do what you're doing, you can buy cards and sell cards and keep them there and not have to worry about tax stuff. I think that that's wonderful. But again, like, buy this card on an auction and go put it in somebody's basement in Oregon, and you'll never see the card. Again, we're being a lot of these products, I've said before, are meant to separate us from our money and not necessarily make our collecting experience or enhance our collecting experience. Products like ComC and other companies, they are offering a service that's beneficial, but this other stuff, a lot of this other stuff is just meant to separate you from your money and doesn't bring any an enhancement to your collecting.
I like ComC, but they're very much a capitalist for-profit business, and you should be aware, when you do business, even with them, of what the fees are and all
Right.
that stuff. When you take money out, there's a charge if you don't use it on, blowout, and so there, it's not manipulation, but you should always keep your eyes open when you deal with any company. Um,
Yeah, but that's like anything, right? That's like any kind of,
But I don't think
you
people
know,
in the hobby
yeah,
do. I think something gets popular and people just follow it. Um,
right.
And so,
But it's offering a service that I think is a tangible service that benefits
absolutely.
not everybody, but different people in different ways, as opposed to we talk about manipulation. A lot of these auction houses. I'm not saying every one of them, but there's a lot of pump
It's
and
a
dump there,
great category.
and
Yep.
it goes back to comps. Comps are dirty. Every comp is dirty because it's like every stat. There's different ways to look at the comps and stuff like that, and different tangibles there as well. But we're so driven by, well, this sold for blah blah blah.
Yep.
Everybody. You go to a show and every dealer is going to say, well, the last one sold at 350. And if I was selling that same card to the dealer would be like, oh, well, I got a comp here for 275 or 150 or 200. It's just, they're dirty comps. And yet that's all we care about a lot of times is comps. Just,
Well,
you know,
I think one of the biggest fallacies in the hobby is that every card printed of the same player, the same card, comes out the same.
right.
Um, and they never have, never will. The
Yep.
printings, and so you have to look at every individual card. You can't comp
Yep.
and just say a six sold for this, so another six has to sell for that. No, I don't
Right.
like that six. I don't want to pay what the other six was.
And what's the difference now, in modern times here? What's the difference between a 9 and a 10? If I had a gun to my
Huge.
head, I would never
Yep.
be able to tell you. I don't care what kind of uh, devices I had hooked up to my eyes. I would not be able to tell you the difference between a 9 and a 10 if 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 my life depended on it.
Well,
Yet the difference in price and the perception of the value of a card is all we care about, and that could be you know it could be dimes or it could be thousands of dollars between a 9 and a 10.
that that's probably the biggest manipulation of them all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we've been programmed as a hobby to accept that,
which is why Hobby
and
Think Tank is here to discuss it.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting how I guess people that watch this will respond, because I feel like these people will have a giggle, and the other and perhaps the junk wax era folks, max wax, whatever you want to call it, might feel differently because they were raised on the chase. Um,
The one thing I will say is, and I think you agree. We've always said that the more you delve into vintage, the more it's like higher level college courses.
right.
And so, to anybody who's into modern and you feel a little overwhelmed that a new release has 52 cards of a player, feel free to educate and learn. Vintage collectors will be happy to talk to you. If there's one thing,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, nobody's better than the other, but I think vintage collectors tend to have a slower burn and less reactive to the blips, right?
well, it's more
It's like
manageable.
it's the
There's
bond
less
market.
cards. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But I've said it before. Most modern collectors have an amazing ability to interpret, receive, and transmit data, which is absolutely beyond anything I have the ability to do. I have a lot of respect for modern collectors. I just worry about the almighty dollar driving every decision, and of course the companies and like you say, some of the influencers having a say in that is because we don't know, even no offense to you or anybody else that produces content, we don't even know who's behind a lot of the content that gets put out there. Not everybody's as
well, that's
transparent with average. Dr. Jim says it right in the beginning of every show who his sponsors are,
yep.
and it's undeniable who his sponsors are. A lot of the shows out there, we don't know that there's people behind the scenes, uh, and whether that influences the content directly or not. I mean, we see overt and covert content kind of uh, sponsorship scenarios. So I think that should be more out in the open too, because nobody's an expert that I know of. Well, I do know a couple experts, but it sure isn't me. And you would say the same about yourself. But we should probably, nobody went to card school like they go to medical school and is a certified card expert. Not that I know of, at least.
Well, I will say a lot of companies that do high end advising and consulting, the saying is always you don't have to know all the answers, you just have to know where to go to get them.
Yep.
So, I would say that in the hobby also. You definitely don't need all the answers, but, know where to go and look. And well, I'll finish on that. Don't be a sheep.
Don't be a sheep. You don't be a sheep. That's for
Yes,
sure.
you don't be a sheep.
You.
All right, John, we good? You got anything else to
Yeah,
add?
I think we're good. No, I'm going to go to bed now.
Yeah. Well, thank you. John is on the West Coast. It is the middle of the night for him, I believe. So thank you for
No, I'm
joining.
just getting in. I'm just getting in from yeah.
Late night partying.
Yeah, it was great.
It was a rave.
It was great.
All
I gotta go to Denny's and get a Grand Slam breakfast, and then I'll be in bed by 3 p.m. So
Have fun.
cool.
Everybody, next time on Hobby Think Tank. Catch you.
Later.